Hey everyone, so today we're going to be working on this version 11 STI. The bearings and the alternator are a little bit noisy. It's nothing serious or anything, but I'm still going to pull it apart just to show you all how to change the bearings. Everything else on this alternator functions properly, but I'll show you how to test it now. So all you need is a multimeter, and we're just going to be checking the charging voltage on the battery with the alternator, so without load, and then with all the lights on and the accessories on, we'll be checking the voltage again and just making sure everything's in check before pulling it apart. And we'll just make sure that there's no over voltage or something similar going to the battery, because then that will indicate a voltage regulator, or if it's not charging properly, it could be the diodes or the brush packs. I've got other videos on a full alternator rebuild. I'll put that link down in the description if you want to see that, but today we're just going to be opening that up and replacing the bearings. So this is the voltage of the battery at the moment without the vehicle being started. This is a good battery. So if you see anything above 12.6, you know it's a good battery. Anything below 12.5, you want to charge it and then recheck it after it's fully charged. And if it's still dropping below 12.5, you want to replace that battery, because eventually it will damage the alternator. So just keep that in mind as well. So we'll go ahead and start the vehicle now. That was a good example built before with the two multimeters. One of them had a low battery, so it was giving us the wrong voltage reading, but you would have seen on the other one the alternator performed well and it did not exceed the voltage. So if you see anything above 15 volts like you did on that multimeter, it's either your multimeter that's playing up or it could be a possible voltage regulator fault. So now we go ahead and remove the belt and pull out the alternator. First things first, because we're working on the electrics of the vehicle, we will be disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery. If you have any radio codes or anything similar, make sure you save this before doing this. Just a 10mm socket needed. Next we want to use a 12mm socket and open up the tensioner. That will lock in place to prevent the bolt from moving. Just loosen it like so. And now we'll just loosen this up. If you spin it, you can hear the bearings are a bit noisy as well. Now that's completed, we'll go ahead and open the positive and remove the positive lead and the connector at the back here. I find it easier to lift up the alternator and then get to the connector at the back. Sometimes if it's difficult, you will need a set of pliers to pull it out. We'll go ahead and remove that final bolt and pull the alternator out. When pulling this bolt out, just make sure you're careful at the back, because so the nut is I'll show you what I mean. This piece here, if you're not holding it at the back, you will drop it. Technically that should just pull out, but I prefer doing it that way. That's the bolt there. Carefully move the wiring loom out of the way, and it just slips out. Like so. So now that we're on the bench, have a listen to the alternator. It's nothing too serious at the moment, but it doesn't hurt to just get the parts replaced before any problem arises. So we'll go ahead and we'll just start organizing our parts, and then we'll open everything up. We'll start by popping this top cap off here. Just like so. And then we've got a 10mm nut in there. Take that nut out. This is actually splined into this, so it'll be a little bit difficult. But now that we're taking the nut out, we'll come to the front housing, and we'll take these 4 bolts off here. They're 8mm heads. Always check the bolts for different lengths. Generally they're the same, but just in case you're using this as an example for another vehicle, just check it and make sure they are the same. Mark them if they're not. So now we'll go ahead and just tap this housing out. Sometimes it can be quite tough to pull out the front housing with the rotor. So you can just take a hammer and just hammer over here and just mount the mount the rear of the case in the vise, and you can just tap it out that way, and then eventually it will just break free. If yours is proving to be way too difficult, spray some lubricant in all these edges over here and let it soak for at least an hour, and then you can retry tapping it. I just put this bolt temporarily in there just to prevent the rotor from popping out, and there we go. So now with the rotor out of the housing, there's no play as such with the bearing, it's just a bit noisy. So that's the rear. Listen to the front. So this is the part number for the bearing. So now that we've opened it up, we'll just give this area a little bit of a clean with the brushes. The brushes and stuff are fine, as you can see, and as we tested before, everything else in this area is fine. So you can just use a little bit of compressed air and just clean up this area. I'll show you how to push these brushes back in and put the rotor back in, but we don't need to touch anything further in this area for the moment. Like I said, if you want to see more on this, you can watch my other video. It's about the same. It's on a Toyota, where I stripped the full alternator, but we're just concerned about this end for the moment. So we're going to open up this bolt over here with the pulley. We'll mark it so we know how much to torque it back down to, and then we'll get to the cage or to the screws for the bearing at the front here. So this is a 24mm nut size over here. We'll go ahead and clamp the rotor in the vise or something similar, but make sure you cover this whole area here, cover it well with a cloth or something similar. You don't want to damage the rotor surface or anything like that. What I like to do is I use a couple of pieces of wood as well. Just put it in between there, then use a cloth. I have an impact, so I'll be using an impact gun. If you don't have an impact, you can use a power bar or a breaker bar or something similar. So we'll take that nut off, take the pulley off, keep that to one side. And now we'll have to, you can use a vise and you have to press this out. So you have to press the rotor out from the bearing. I have a press, so I'll be using that now. So I've got it here set up on the press. As you can see, it's just on the housing, and we're just going to be pressing it out that way. Pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you don't drop the rotor. Just like so. Don't forget the spacer over here. So you just pop it up like so, and then you have access to the internal bearing there. This is the bracket that I was referring to that holds the bearing in place. It's held in by those 4 Phillips screws over there. You want to be very careful with these because you can strip them. I prefer using an impact and then opening it that way. Make sure you use a new good driver and it's rated for impact. Just as I was saying, be careful with these bolts. One of these got stripped, but if you look at this area, this seemed to get a lot of crud over here, so hopefully we'll use a left-hand drill bit and we'll just see what happens, if we can get it out. Sometimes if you're lucky enough, the left-hand drill bit will just pull it out. But now that we're drilled here, we'll use a normal drill bit, and I'll try the screw extractor to try and pull it out. I'll switch to a cobalt drill bit now because that previous one just broke. So now we're going through the center of the bolt. I'll try the left-hand drill bit again, and let's hope that it comes out. And as you saw, it just came out. So that's excellent because now I've saved the threads. I'll go ahead and remove the other bolt. The screw extractor method might work, but from my experience, I prefer using the left-hand drill bits. As you can see, the threads are saved on it. That's perfect. I just need to get a new screw now and it's all good to go. So by drilling the center out, it released the pressure that was holding onto the threads over here. So when I drilled to the center there, then I used a left-hand drill bit and then it released it. So just like so. And this is the bearing at the back here. I'll just go ahead again in the press and just push this out. Self-explanatory, so I won't bore you with that. You just have to push this out. You can put it in the vise as well and push it out that way. Just have a socket or something bigger around here if you're putting in the vise. and here's that bearing. So I'll show you my setup. I just use the bearing puller. You can easily get this from Amazon or eBay. Just a simple small type bearing puller. It just goes above the slip rings over here, fits underneath the bearing, and as you saw, I just pressed it out. So you can, again, if you don't have a press, you can use the similar method and use the extractor piece. I'll show you what I mean. So this comes as a kit, and you could just use the main piece over there and extract it that way. You don't need a press, but just because I have a press, I used it because it makes life a little bit easier. And the tool I used is just one of these drivers. A lot of your drill bit extension pieces use this sort of a driver, so you can just use this in there if you need to. So I'm going to be using a 7mm, just a 1/4 inch socket, just to press on the inner race. So you always want to press on the inner race. Put that there, and I'll put it in my press. It shouldn't require too much force to press this bearing in. You can add a little bit of oil on the tip of the rotor. And just like that, you want it just to reach the bottom of the rotor shaft over there. So that one's done. Now we'll go ahead and press the other one. For this one here, this bearing, the 6203, you can just place it there, and I'm using a 30mm socket. So a 30mm socket, just to press on the outer race until it seats in there flush. And I'm just putting it against here. So that's it, nice and flush in there. Go ahead and don't forget this bracket or the holder, bearing holder. So now I'll show you how to pack the brushes in. A lot of people might get stuck on this part, so just pay attention to this. So what you need to do is, at the back over here, there's that hole. You can use a nail, you can use an Allen key, use whatever you feel like you want to use. So I'll just be using this long nail. Pop it in there, and you'll feel it touching against something. That's the first brush. So hopefully you can see that. What you want to do is go in there with your screwdriver and push it in. Or a tool that's even better is a pick, something similar to this. Go in there and push the brush right in. Now the first one is locked in place. Now the second one is locked in place, and that's how far it's gone down. So you just have to do that, very straightforward, and we can slip the rotor back in now after reinstalling everything. Now with all that reinstalled in there, like I said earlier, do not forget your spacer. So as I said, don't forget this piece here. Make sure these are all tight, all the screws. You don't need to go super tight, as long as they're just tight. And we'll be pressing this back in there. Just like so. Spins nice and freely. And now we'll match up the case to the rotor. Just put in there like so, and just drop the bolts in so you get the alignment correct. To install the nut, we'll lock the pulley in, and then we'll tighten up the nut. Once the bolts go in easily, we'll just tap it in the rest of the way. Just with the rubber mallet, just tap it in. over tighten them, and we'll just put the rear cap back on. In some other models you have to remove it. It's just safer to remove it sometimes, because if that B post comes out, it'll break. So and finally the pulley. I'll just go ahead and mount it on the vise, and I'll tighten that up. Just like so, all torqued down. And now we'll have a listen to it. So now if you listen to it when I spin it. Don't forget finally to pull out the pin at the back. Just like so. And now we'll go ahead and spin it. It's nice and solid. So I hope that video was of some help to you. Everything is reverse of removal on the car, so that's very straightforward. Thanks for watching, everyone. See ya. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos like this.